All right, guys. Tonight I want to talk about. I've been thinking about it. Every news headline is about COVID, the pandemic, and we're doing a health podcast, and it got me thinking, just as a matter of framing and perspective, it strikes me that there are things out there worse than COVID.
Really?
Yes. Well, I mean, we can talk about heart disease, we can talk about cancer, we can talk about all of those things, but COVID seems like this thing that we have to take immediate action on. That seems to be the implication in what we're told every day in the media, and I guess people do, and to some degree that probably makes a good bit of sense. But is there a pandemic out there that we're all dealing with right now that is worse than COVID?
Yeah, there's about 9.
Yeah, they're up there. I had a conversation with a patient today who came in. She had 2 masks on. She's an older lady, and she felt embarrassed because we're pretty free in our office, and it's your decision. Not going to shame or whatever. But she was like, I know we're still masking and all this, and I was like, it's okay. And she goes, but so many people are dying all over the place with this COVID. And I said, really? And she goes, yeah. I mean, they're dropping dead everywhere. And I said, seriously? And I said, how many? And she said, well, I know we're up over 600,000 in the U.S. And I said, did you know that last year 2.3 million people died from TB? And she went, what? And I go, yeah, 2.3 million died from tuberculosis. Okay, that's a pandemic.
Yeah,
why aren't we afraid of that?
Well, is that outside of America, or is that?
It's the worldwide.
So
but there's people dying in TB in the
well,
US.
sure, it's still a thing. And
more
malaria,
people coming over,
so there's other diseases.
They're bringing them through the borders now. Matter of fact, they're bringing smallpox, which was supposedly eradicated. Smallpox, measles, mumps, rubella, TB. It's all coming into our borders. So we're gonna have, it's coming to a theater near you in the United States.
That's a lovely
Talk
thought.
about stress.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's actually what I was trying to get at. I was digging at stress, and you actually kind of referenced it because that lady was under
stress,
extreme stress.
She was so stressed. Everybody's dying all around her.
Right. And that stress is a downstream effect, I guess, of the COVID, the whole pandemic. And I think, there's so much attention to literally just the point blank attacking the virus, the disease, fighting the disease. And there's not a lot, I won't say not a lot, but insufficient consideration given to helping people know how to manage just the environment. We're in a new environment now. And the environment is very stressful. There's a lot of mandated change. There was a lot of economic uncertainty, financial stress. I mean, look at all of the stress-related effects of COVID that weren't necessarily caused biologically by COVID. You had schools were completely disrupted. I mean, think about parents that, you got 2 parents with 2 incomes. They can barely keep it going, and then all of a sudden now they got kids at home. There's just so there was this whole, and there's kind of this focusing on the disease, focusing on the mortality caused by the disease. And I realize there's controversy over the data and all of that, but that's where the focus is. And the stress effect, may be worse than the cure, the aggregate cure with all of these lockdowns and stressors that were put into place could be worse than the whole problem itself to start with.
I think that's absolutely true. I think the response to this pandemic has been far worse than the actual
And
virus.
I'd like to divest. I mean, we could have a political discussion and go on till the cows come home.
No thanks.
Let's
I'll
just talk about the health part, right?
Yeah.
So, you guys are health experts, and I want to kind of bring up, they're talking about stress, and I could see people wanting to dismiss this, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
they're
just talking stress.
Yeah.
We know that. Yeah, yada yada yada. We know. Stress.
I don't want to interrupt you, but people today, they want to tell you that their life is more stressful than anything.
Oh, it's a competition.
And they also are like feel good about it. It's like, oh, you have no idea.
It's a badge.
It is.
It's a badge.
So
Like,
so there's like a
yeah,
competition.
well, stop telling me your problems. I've got so much more stress than you that I don't have time to think about anything that you're telling
You
me.
don't have time for empathy.
Yeah. No.
No, you should see what I go.
No,
through
I'm in a
every
freaking
day.
crisis over here,
Right.
Yeah.
guys. So, but let's talk about, what happens when somebody is under extreme stress for a long period of time.
I think before the show, John, you said it. Cortisol.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just on a cellular level. I mean,
Physiological reaction, yeah.
Your cortisol, your stress hormone. I mean, that's an immune suppressing hormone. I mean, that's prednisone is synthetic cortisol, which they give to people when their immune system is being overreactive. So if you're chronically stressed, you're going to have chronically high cortisol. It's going to cause high blood pressure. It's also going to weaken your immune system and make you susceptible to infection, which is the last thing people need right now if there's a virus going around. So,
Well, and that's when, we talked about from a nervous system level, you've got your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic. Your sympathetic is that whole fight or flight, and that's what cortisol is doing, is amping you up, along with other things happening in your body for fight or flight. And then what's not being paid attention to, because the body's making a short-term trade-off decision versus a long-term, is rest and repair, recuperation, digestion, tissue regeneration, immune fortification. I mean, those are things that just go by the wayside under chronic stress.
You know what I think it just dawned on me is because we can talk stress till we're blue in the face
ad nauseum.
Until we're stressed out about it.
Well, people are not getting it because I think we need to tell them what it looks like. Like you and all three of us have a certain amount of stress, but we're not here pulling our hair out and screaming and crying and rocking. When people hear that word, they think, well, I'm not that. So they go, I don't have stress. So I think we could probably do the audience a great favor in to say, stress is financial stress. I don't know if my job's going to get cut. And John, so you talked about cortisol. So say you're in the woods and a bear comes around the corner and rears up and like you have stress, right? What about if husband and wife are fighting, they're arguing back and forth, and they don't have any money in the checkbook? Is there any difference in the response to cortisol?
No, I mean that's people become irrational. Like little things become big deals, like things that you could laugh about.
Yeah, they lose perspective.
They in marriages, they cause fights, they cause, in the most horrible cases, domestic violence. I mean, there's it's not pretty.
I guess the point I'm trying to make, and I think you're underscoring it, is that somebody who's got to take two kids to soccer practice and get the meals, and then they're not sure if their husband's going to get fired and the wife's job is in jeopardy too, and you don't know if toilet paper is going to be there, that those stresses are producing
Are the kids going to have
cortisol.
school? Are kids having school tomorrow? Are they going to be home?
Right. It's like moms are going, I don't know, I haven't been in high school in 20 years, and I have to
And they're
like
having to teach
the
calculus.
kids.
Yeah, right.
Like that's stress. It's not like pulling your hair out and crying in the corner. Mm-hmm. It's chronic stress, and it's helping people not sleep well.
Digestive issues. I mean, that's the big one that people, they don't talk about it.
We have just people walking into our store as a population. 1 in 3 have some kind of significant digestive ailment.
Did you hear that? 1 in 3.
Bing.
They hardly ever say they have stress. They talk about the side
Result
effects
of stress.
Yeah, the symptoms of
What
stress.
are those symptoms?
Yeah, I mean it's their hair's falling out. They've got an upset stomach. They're nauseous. They have diarrhea. They have acid reflux.
Well, the answer to that is what ails them, because almost any, I guess you could probably quibble over the percentages, but I've seen anything from 80 to 90% of disease processes are significantly aggravated or even caused by significant stress.
Right.
So almost every health problem manifests or is triggered or aggravated by stress. So it's a really big deal. And I remember, they did research with lab mice, and they put a bunch of lab mice in a cage, fed them, measured how long they lived. That was the control group. The next group, they put into a cage. Next to the cage, they were in a glass partition. On the other side of the cage, a cat. Those animals had much poorer health, and they died way sooner.
Even though the cat couldn't get to them.
Cat couldn't get to them. There was no actual cat danger. It was perceived stress, and that's a very important thing, because what is actually stressful versus what is perceived can be vastly different.
Well, we have a glass screen with perceived danger on the other side too, and it's called a television or a cell phone.
Cell phone, Facebook, social media.
I call it the news.
The news.
That is your cat on the other side of the glass.
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
true.
And it's producing the same response. Like, I mean, so that mouse. I love that analogy. So the mouse is sitting there, cat can't get to him, but the brain is perceiving major stress. And so when you're having stress, you're not going to digest properly. Your immune system's going to shut off. Reproductive function's going to go haywire. You're going to lose your hair. I'm sure they had all kinds of illnesses, and so that I hope people can hear this. You don't have to have the volcano erupting and lava coming across your house. It could be just the perception of, everybody's dying of COVID. It's a perception, but no one's going, oh my gosh, 2.3 million people died of tuberculosis last year. 4 point something million died of HIV. Oh my gosh, this is terrible.
And so that was no big deal, because I guess it was expected.
They're not hearing about it.
Yeah, it's not on the other side of the glass. I mean,
Right.
They're not seeing it. Right, exactly. They're not seeing, there's the cat. But we keep telling people, COVID, and they're just like,
Well, think about this. So back in 200, 300 years ago, life was physically way more dangerous.
yeah.
yeah.
Way, not even close. And people were on, starvation was an issue. Disease was a much bigger issue. I mean, we fought the Revolutionary War with an epidemic of smallpox,
Right.
for example. So you had really, really dangerous existence compared to now. And yet, the pace of life was slower, and the information, they didn't have the glass with the cat. They would read occasionally, a weekly newspaper. They would sit in pubs and pass back and forth what's going on, but they didn't have this instantaneous
Sewage.
14 alarm fire. I mean, there's a 14 alarm fire every day if you watch the news.
But it's not.
Right.
It's not. It's a perception. That little mouse was okay. The petition was there. The cat wasn't getting over there and not gonna eat it. It was okay, but it perceived the problem, and that's where I think people need to see. Okay, look, I'm marinating in this stuff. We don't know what's going on with the country. I mean, you can hear Trump this, Biden this, COVID this, mask this, vaccination this, da da da, and they're just going, I don't know. It's just, and they're not sleeping good at night. I mean, it bothers me. Because, I listen to patients all day long, and I go home, and I'm like, some people are, tuning completely out, and others are just so completely consumed by it. And it's like, I don't know how to help them.
Yeah. I think, I just thought of this, but I think a big problem is that people are ignorant to the fact that the news is just marketing. I mean, that's all it is. You're getting... like you said, you're getting beat over the head with the same message over and over again, but it's just marketing. Like we tune out other things. Like, you see like an Apple, like an iPhone commercial, and you're like, oh, it's just a commercial.
I'm going to give you a great example of that, and I'm going to be as earnest as I can to be apolitical. Like, this isn't one side versus the other side. I'm not going to use one example that makes the other side look bad. But when you watch the Weather Channel and it's sprinkling, and there's this big hurricane coming, right? And it's sprinkling, and the breeze is barely blowing, and you've got the commentator guys like bracing and rocking back like he's being thrown around by this hurricane, and you got people in the background waving and little girl doing cartwheels, and like that illustrates.
Here's a
what
little
you're
dolphin
saying.
poking its head out of the water.
I mean, it's the sun comes out. I mean, it's amazing, right? So that's just
it's marketing, like,
and it's
but people fall for it. It's like legitimized. It's like the most legitimate, and it's like the government. Like, anything the government says is sacred, and they have your best interest in mind 100% of the time. It's like, no, they're all people. They all have everyone has agendas. Some
well,
are
and they
good,
also
some are
even
bad.
if they have
Like,
good even with good intentions, they make mistakes. They're human. They're fallible. So, yeah. But anyway, so this whole other side of the screen thing that's really a huge part of what's changed in our culture over the last few years, and the pandemic was like the perfect vehicle for it to express itself. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's a huge insight. So this might be a two-parter. And I think
like
we're going to do an outro intro.
Hey, before we do that though, but it's like, I think our society is in a place where, let's just say, well, who's like a beloved actor or actress right now? Like, people just, they just love this person. Anybody? Dave, is she anybody?
Who's cool? Who's cool these days? I don't know. Ariana Grande.
Jurassic Park.
Oh, Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt.
Yeah, he's
Okay,
pretty cool.
So Chris Pratt,
I like Chris Pratt.
right? I mean, a lot of people go, oh yeah, I mean, I know him, whatever.
Yeah.
But if he were to have committed some kind of heinous, act, people would be all over it, because it's like they want to. They
Like
might
Pee Wee Herman.
Well, yeah, they might want to love the person, but when something bad happens, it's like it makes you feel better that this
Well, that's
person.
the whole circus thing, right?
Yeah,
Like the psychology behind a circus is like we go to see all of these kind of crazy things so we feel better about ourselves.
yeah.
I mean, isn't that what tabloids are for?
Well, and then what people say when they went and they watched NASCAR racing and stuff. And I ask them, how was it? Oh man, it was awesome. It was a huge crash. Like, they feel good when people have tragedy, when they're put down.
Well, the danger and the excitement, and I think
makes them feel better.
They've done some research on this, and the news people they're selling product, they're selling media, they're selling advertising, and they put money in their pockets when they get a lot of viewers. That's how it works. And what they have learned over time is that dangerous and catastrophic stuff, blood in the streets, sells. It's like 7 times, 10 times more effective than good stories, and most of day-to-day life is a succession of little bits of progress, little good stories.
And why is that? Because we, instinctually, we're like, our ears perk up. If we're sense danger, we're more aware. And now they flip to that commercial, and we're like honed in, and we're taking in that marketing way more intensely, because we're all perked up. And
it's a caveman days. Like, if you ignored the saber-toothed tiger, you were probably in trouble pretty quick. So there was some biological bias there.
Yeah, if I were a marketer during caveman days, I would put my logo on the saber tooth, like on its side, and I would be doing
like one of those banners.
What the news
does.
does.
Oh my word! But and also I think people, if we can, I don't want to like shame anybody, but in 32 years of practicing kind of a holistic chiropractic, respecting the human body, the body can heal itself from incredible things. that, you know, anytime I've sent a patient for surgery, usually if a chiropractor sends you for surgery, it's probably necessary. But I can tell you, it's not exaggeration, 90% of the surgeons after the surgery, they come back and they tell the patient, it's a good thing we did this because it was the worst I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how many the worst you've ever seen? And I'm not trying to put anybody down, but they're playing into this because when the patient has surgery, you want it to be bad enough to say, hey, that was my only option. You needed surgery. So the surgeon's not going to come out and say, you know what, we really didn't have to do that. It was a 4-hour operation, but it was probably not necessary.
You know, we got in there, we cut you open, we got in there, we decided, meh,
It was, you know,
it looks like it's healing.
it was a waste of time, actually. You know, so they come out and they say, it was the worst, and the patient feels good because it's justified.
Thank good I made that decision.
Right. So we're dealing with so many different levels of all this stress, and you know, we're all trying to cope with it, but you know, when we feel like we're all in this terrible thing going on, everybody's even, it feels good instead of going, you know what, I have responsibility for my own health. You know, I'm going to make sure that I get to bed early tonight. I'm going to make sure that I drink plenty of water. I'm going to stretch. I'm going to take my supplements. I'm going to eat good. I'm going to exercise. You know, it's up to me to maintain my health. That's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah. But I will tell you that a lot of people, if they turned off the damn television, they would have time to do all that stuff.
It would cure a lot of...
And I dare somebody to do that as a 30-day experiment. It would literally transform their life.
So, did you see the meme? You know, I treat some Amish and I treat some Mennonite communities, people, and I love them. They're great. But there was a picture, and there was this guy interviewer, and he said to the Amish guy, he said, how come you guys aren't suffering from you know, COVID and everything? He says, because we don't have TV. And you know, it's true.
Oh man, that's awesome.
It's true.
Their immune system's stronger.
They don't have TV.
Less cortisol.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny how many things that they don't suffer from because they don't even know they're happening.
They don't know it's... Yeah.
Which is, you know, they say ignorance is bliss. Maybe tactically, strategically, ignorance is actually a good thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that might be true. It might be that ignorance is bliss, or it might be that, you know, we're being bombarded with falsehoods, and those are just really bad for us. Like,
right.
Well, yeah. I mean, what's that quote?
It's falseness.
It's like if you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. But if you read the newspaper, you're misinformed.
Right.
So, I mean, maybe that's what that is.
So what's the answer?
You know, I've been trying to think. There's not a magic thing. Yeah. That's the thing. It's basically watch our podcast and accumulate little bits of wisdom and apply the stuff that works for you. And it's so, I mean, it's really, it's a holistic means that you're kind of looking at everything and you're taking everything into account. You know, whole. You're treating the whole. So you're looking at your lifestyle. You're looking at, okay, what kind of media am I ingesting? You know, am I reading books versus, you know, being addicted to my phone? You know, what kind of food am I eating? Is it out of a drive-through window, or am I cooking things that grew somewhere at some point in time? You know, it's all of those things. You know, am I caring for my frame? And that could be a combination of physical exercise. It could be getting chiropractic. It could be getting massages. I mean, there's a lot of different avenues to explore there. Nutrition, we talk a lot about nutrition. That's kind of our wheelhouse. You know, is there a role for supplementation, you know, to augment the holes in the food thing? You know, so but it's all of them. It's not this or that. It's a lifestyle, and it's
work. It sounds like work.
Yeah, but it's immensely rewarding.
Or you could just sit down and watch the news.
It's much easier, and then you just feel worse.
Yeah, but you feel terrible.
Right.
And then you don't want to do anything, and then your life gets shorter, and then it's just bad.
Oh.
So,
I don't know what the answer is. It's, you know...
Well, I just told you.
Yeah, I know. But, you know, I feel bad for the audience because they've been brought up and they're marinating in, you know, you have high cholesterol, take a pill. You have diabetes, take an injection. You have this. There's always this quick thing instead of saying, you're responsible for your own health. And people are so stressed, their cortisol levels up, and they're fighting, the heart disease, cancer, diabetes, indigestion, all that stuff. And they're just going, can you just tell me something simple? And go, the simple thing is you got to sleep good. You got to play and have fun and laugh a lot. You got to drink water. You got to have exercise and eat right and take supplements. And they're like, that's too much, but that's the answer.
It is. And the thing is, maybe a key is to understand that you don't have to go through this radical transformation where you try to make all of these massive changes at one
just
time.
do one.
Pick one thing and just do it until it becomes a habit. Maybe it's a 10-minute walk every day.
Right.
Maybe it's that.
Well, and our bodies are pretty resilient, and I think your level of pain and suffering is going to dictate how quickly you implement the positive changes, right?
Well, sure,
like
yeah.
If if it's just some nagging stuff, then you probably have 10 years to work on it. But if you're, in agony, you're probably going to want to solve that problem as quickly as possible. It kind of takes care of itself, honestly.
Yeah, well, you don't want to get to the point to where you require heroic medicine, so to speak. Heroic intervention,
So you were going to do this like intro, outro thing?
Well, it just occurred to me that was...
We sort of did it.
That was either the world's
he
longest...
said the words intro, outro.
This is the world's longest prelude to an intro.
Are we going to do the show now? This was the intro.
I guess we were stressed out.
Hey, if someone watched this, whatever it is, 20 minutes plus, that's 20 minutes they weren't watching the news.
Yeah.
So mission accomplished.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. And hope they laughed a little bit because
Yeah.
we are goofy.
At us rather than with
We
us.
don't care.
Yeah.
Don't care. Just get away from the world's mess, and have some fun.
This is Dr. Kennedy from Kennedy Chiropractic. This is John Rigdon, nutrition guru and eye candy. I'm Charlie Ray. I own Nature's Outlet and Amplified Naturals. And our show is The Doctor Within because we believe the doctor in here is better than all of the doctors out there.
Amen.